I'll give it a couple of seconds. Meeting of the Somerville Planning Board for June 12th, 2024 will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act has been provided. A copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was one posted on a bulletin board outside Borough Hall, 2 mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and 3 given to the Clerk Administrator. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and a decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Okay, roll call.
Chairman Novato.
Here.
Ms. Rosinski. Here. Mayor Gallagher. Councilman Vroom.
Here.
Ms. Adair. Ms. Warner.
Here.
Mr. Kraska.
Here.
Mr. Carestes.
Here.
Mr. Cleveland.
Here.
Mr. Addix.
Here.
Mr. Akins.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gotta climb back up on the chair.
Complained when it was too low.
What?
You complained when it was low.
I'm not complaining. I'm explaining. Okay. Approval of the minutes for May 22nd.
I'll move.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Okay, when you're ready, Jen.
Chairman Novato.
Yes.
Ms. Rosinski.
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Kraska.
Yes.
Okay, we have a resolution for the Route 22 application.
I'll move that we approve it.
Second.
Any other comments on it? Okay,
Chairman Novato.
yes.
Ms. Rosinski.
Yes.
Councilman Vroom.
Yes.
Mr. Kraska.
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Addix.
Yes.
Chairman, I just want to point out the meeting right now is being live streamed under the Borough Council meeting from last week. So instead of it being broadcast on tonight's night, it's being broadcast on June 3rd currently.
Good job figuring that out.
Yeah, I know, right?
Time travel.
Yeah,
I love
we
it.
went back in time. I just wanted to let you know that, and anyone in the audience knows if you want to look back later. Right now, it's being broadcast on the June 3rd meeting.
Okay,
Okay, just letting everybody, just letting you know. After last week. Yeah.
okay, and we have one pending resolution for the taqueria on Division Street, but we don't have that in front of us at this point.
Didn't we approve that about 6 or 8 months ago?
I don't remember when we did that.
It was a while back. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it might have been,
They changed something?
I don't know. It's just pending.
Okay, so that brings us to the topic of discussion for the evening. And as you all know, we've been asked by the Borough Council to review our zoning ordinance and make a recommendation about whether or not we think changes should be made to restrict where gun stores can go. My original hope was to have somebody come in and explain the whole process, but we were unable to find any law enforcement people who were willing to come in and do that. Which is why I produced that information that was distributed so that you could see the process. And I think it's important that we understand the process, and a number of things come into my mind anyway. Number one is you can't just walk into a gun store and buy a gun. It doesn't happen that way. And the process to, number one, get a firearms ID card, which allows you to buy long guns, and you have to go through the process all over again each time you want to buy a handgun. So it's, and there are age restrictions. You can't get a firearms ID card until you are 18 or older, and you can't buy a handgun unless you are 21 or older. And all of it's handled by the local police department. So, having said that, does anybody have any comments?
I think it's hard to make a decision when you don't have all the information in front of you to make that decision. So I sympathize with the position that you just outlined.
What additional information do you,
Well, I mean, you
Need.
just discussed that, but we don't have any of the complexities in front of us or the details in terms of going through the process of, I understand that there's limitations on what people are supposed to do, but this goes back to zoning if I'm not,
didn't you get the handout?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and I saw the fact that, I was very dismayed that nobody decided to come and discuss that with us. I would love to see an expert here.
Yeah, they won't come.
Yeah,
They just won't do it. And we talked to the state police, we talked to the prosecutor's office,
no, I think they're
And-
thorough.
and they just won't come to a public meeting and discuss it. So that's where we're left. So it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to recommend restrictions on where gun stores can be located. And my personal view is, I don't see the threat. It's, the guns aren't visible because of state requirements. So it's not, I don't see where the threat is. So that's my opinion.
So I don't think I can make a decision until I know what we actually could do as far as lawfully change the zoning, or lawfully change the signage, or lawfully set up a safe zone around an elementary school. I think I need answers to those questions. What are we capable of making changes? Or are there no changes we can make because it's basically the law to allow this gun shop anywhere? So my questions are more like, what power do we have as a planning board?
We have none in this case.
We
we're
make
Making
recommendations.
a recommendation to the council.
Okay, but what power does the council have to change this?
They
That's
would-
what I'm saying.
They would have to make an ordinance to say that it's prohibited sales
They
within
would- yeah,
this
they
Right,
area.
but
Change.
would that be challenged because it's an amendment, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, what do we really, realistically,
I'm sure it would be challenged.
what
but
do,
they-
what is there we can do? Can we do a signage ordinance? The letter that we received says the signage is disturbing to people because it has bullets on it. I can sort of understand that, even though the guns are not visible. But, and there's a talk about a safe zone around schools. Is there already a set-up safe zone around schools? Can we create our own safe zone around schools? I think we need, lawfully, I need somebody to answer those
I
questions.
think if that's going to be done, that safe zone has to be defined in terms of what's unsafe. And I don't believe that the state law that says you can create a gun-free zone around a school applies to a retail establishment.
It does not. I did look into that. It is the matter of actually, listen, you can live in a house that has it because you legally own it. Is that you cannot walk freely through those school zones or those safe zones with a weapon unless you're authorized to do so based on your job. So you can't restrict on the sense of, you know, like if I lived in a school safe zone, it doesn't mean I can't own a handgun and have it properly in my home. You can't restrict based on the safe zone. I'm not saying that we can't do this zoning-wise, but you can't restrict based because, oh, well, it's a school safe zone.
Well, that's my question. I don't.
Just like liquor, like
Right.
it's no different.
That's my question. It sounds, from the research I've done, we don't have anything we can possibly do.
So I actually, on that point, because I agree with Deirdre, I think the way that this is being approached is dangerous for us because it's a matter of what do we have the purview here. When we did this, God knows how many years ago, when it came to tattoo shops, and full disclosure, my daughter's a tattoo artist, so I have my own personal opinion, but I understood why we needed to look at some restrictions as to where tattoo shops could go. This was a process that we went through, and we were methodical because we wanted to make sure we were doing it the right way for the right reasons. And I think as a planning board member, I think it's our due diligence to make sure, as Deirdre's saying, what can we lawfully do? What are we on dangerous terms with where we could get ourselves and the borough, because it's not really us, it's the borough as itself. And I think that process was very methodical, and I'm not quite sure why in this instance we are veering from what our normal process is at looking at zoning. Because I think we are very close to, in my opinion, spot zoning. Like, yeah, you can have that, but you can't have this. You can have this, but you can't have that, with no real reasons. And we were very methodical in our reasoning, and I'm not saying in the end maybe we all decide that, but I think us looking at it, why aren't we looking at everything else in those zones? Why is it just gun shops that we're looking at? You know, some people have some very strong opinions as to the smoke shop that's there, is what's coming out of there. Why are we only looking at guns? Because it seems like we're targeting something now versus looking at it very methodically as to what's appropriate in a buffer zone, as we call them, versus what's appropriate maybe more downtown or on the outskirts of our town. We've done that with every other type of retail in this borough. Why are we only focusing on one? No matter what our opinions are, our job here is to put our opinions at the door and do the right thing.
But are you saying that we can't restrict future gun shops to particular zones?
I think the question is, if we can, what are the regulations with that? If we do it, do we have a good reason for it? Are we allowed to just haphazardly say, we don't want that there?
Well, what about, you use an example of, nobody wanted cell sites years ago. Courts decided that you can't just say no. So we said, you gotta have it on a 5-story building. You got those. So all the cell sites that are up on roofs and stuff, they're allowed. The towers are out there on PSE&G. I'm just using this as an example.
I think we're saying the same thing. You can't just say no. You got to at least have an alternate
Well, this
or,
is what I've been
or a
telling
reason.
people. There has to be you have to have an alternative. So years ago, when we were here talking about the bookstores that were controversial, we talked about it and we said, well, the best place to put it would be in the industrial zone, the I zone. It never came to fruition, but that was a place where we said, yeah, you could have it here, but you can't have it over on Gaston Avenue.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm trying to say is that there's a process. We've never just looked at something and said we don't want it there. Right. We've always looked at it as a whole in the borough and say, okay, well, maybe it's not appropriate here, but where is it appropriate? Where do we think we can put it so that we're not saying something is just banned?
And I think all of the changes we've made over the years, at least the years that I've been here, have been comprehensive changes where we took a comprehensive look at a lot of different things and said, okay, we want this here and we don't want it over here because it's not appropriate for a reason. And then we make a recommendation to the Borough Council. And I think part of what I wanted to do this year was take a look at our master plan, make sure that we get everything done in the right order, take a look at the master plan and look at lots of different uses. Take a look at Schedule A and see what let's have another look at it.
Even if we just took the mixed zone and said, let's look at what's allowed there and take that as a piece of the pie and saying, we look there, what other uses or what other allowable retail there that we don't feel is appropriate maybe also needs to be moved, instead of just focusing.
And so, and I agree with all your points there. I think that I'm trying to understand what these changes would actually solve. If we say in zone X, Y, or Z, that doesn't mean it's going to be any further from a school or someplace where there's kids necessary. And the second part is, if we start drawing circles around schools or daycares, where does that stop? Is it the middle school, elementary school, high school, daycares, home care?
Private schools, we have private
So
schools.
you start getting to the point where do you start and where do you stop?
Yeah, there's no place left.
Yeah, right? So I think those two things, and then if you do that, if you accomplish that either through zoning or through radius around schools or places where there's children, what did you solve? A gun star could go 100 feet from that line, and did that really solve anything through all the effort there? I don't know. I don't know if it did, right?
Yeah, I
Get
think,
that?
that whole area, we looked at making it a development zone and trying to, that whole intersection and everything was a little hodgepodge years ago, and we tried to, and it was dying hodgepodge, so we tried to turn things into retail and allow certain things. There are still buildings there, the old auto shop that has yet to be developed, so I think in this master plan rethink and looking at places that need a new kind of redevelopment plan, I think that intersection is key. So I think we should be looking at that big picture, and then part of that would be looking at what's appropriate for that area in redevelopment. I don't think we should try and find the perfect spot for a gun shop in Somerville. That's not gonna be, that's not gonna work.
Never been the way we've done it before.
No, we didn't look for a perfect spot for other things, so even with the tattoo parlor, remember, we had certain regulations, but, we had specific reasons for allowing things in certain places as the town developed, and that's why we did that. I mean, there was a big hubbub, I think before your time, Lisa, I'm dating myself, about public laundromats. People were arguing you shouldn't have laundromats in town. I mean, so, the gun topic is a very hot topic, but I think if we look at if we pull back and just look at it as a whole, we need to look at that intersection. There's no doubt that children walk by at sort of a hodgepodge of mixed uses. It needs to be maintained, it needs to be kept up, the properties need to be kept up so there's no danger to them. But we also need to look at what we can encourage people to come in and put there that might be conducive to kids walking home from school or families walking by it, that maybe we haven't really encouraged to have happen on that intersection. So that's my feeling, is let's take a step back, and in the process that we're about to do, in looking at the master plan and everything, we need to really look at that intersection and see how we can make it a better place to walk through, rather than trying to nitpick what's already there.
Yeah, and to that point, I'll just say one last thing, that on that point, there could be something else that's there that we haven't even thought of, and we're so focused on the one shop that we miss it. So why not just look at the whole?
I think it's a,
Because it's really more about, that topic can go either way based on your personal opinion. And taking that out of it, maybe there's another topic there that could be the same way. So I think if we look at it as a whole, we can be all-inclusive, and we can do the right thing for what we feel is best for our community as a whole versus opinions.
And just, go ahead, Larry.
Well, just say, is the goal to zone all the rest of the town away from it, or to move this existing place?
So we can't
What is
move
the
We
it.
goal? I
cannot
know
move this
Well,
place. That is
that's-
done.
Well, no, this is what I'm trying to get to the
Yeah.
point of. So it seems to be a lot easier to say, where can't you put it? You
I
can't
think-
put it all these places, but it's there, and it's there forever.
We can't go back in time on that.
No,
But
I completely understand, I get it. I'm just looking at it from the point of view of, it would be easier and quicker for us to look at all the zones and say, no, you can't have it anywhere, because it's already here.
but you have to have a reason.
You can't
You
just
can't
do
just
that.
say you can't have it here.
Okay,
You can't
We
just
will
say that.
lose, we will lose.
Well, no,
We'll be
well,
back
I
here with,
understand, but then we have to look at every zone. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about.
but I think if we start, to Deirdre's point, at least we start there, and then we see what maybe is appropriate, and then, because once you say, okay, this isn't appropriate there, then you do have to go, okay, but where is it? Because we can't just say it's not appropriate.
Can't say no, you have to have a reason.
And if we know
we have
that's
to
a
match
hot,
that.
that's a very sensitive area, because it's, you know, it's one of the, in my opinion, one of the last true, what was supposed to be that transition that really maybe isn't so transitional anymore, of the way the traditional, old school transitional was looked at.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing is that our recommendation to council is going to be that we look at the master plan and then make recommendations, comprehensive zoning recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's the proper way to do it.
Isn't that
I think
part-
so.
Isn't that part of
Okay.
getting out?
So I have no
I
comment.
was just gonna, yeah, so to Al's point, I mean, we are bidding out to redo the master plan and look at the zoning and everything as well, so we are in the process of,
We have begun the
Right.
process.
begun the
begun.
process, let me say, yeah, not really in it. I assume there's a crowd full of people here that, are we opening this to the public for?
Yes, I'm about to do that.
Then I'm gonna shut up then.
Okay, I know that Colin has something to say.
Thank you, yeah, I will. Because I gotta introduce myself to the audience. Hello?
Is that on?
No, I think you turned it
Oh, mic's on.
There's a red light.
There we go.
I turned it off. Right, my name's Colin Driver. I'm Director of Economic Development for the borough. I have been charged by the mayor, as has Kara, the attorney, to construct 3 RFPs, requests for proposals for zoning in the borough. And I hear what the board is saying tonight, and they're accurate in what they're saying. We are going to investigate all the zoning in the borough, and we're asking for quotes and proposals from professionals who understand zoning, because you heard the discussion here. We need guidance. So we're requesting people to come in and guide us through the process. The same with the master plan. The same with redevelopment plans. We're asking professionals to come and work on behalf of the borough to revise our zoning in accordance with the current law and according to what the community wants. There will be public meetings in this room. So we're trying to get a little bit in front of ourselves, and I know the mayor was very concerned about the gun issue, but we can't get in front of ourselves if we want to do it correctly. So I think that's about it, but we're really going to do it, and it's going to be a process which is done legally, it's going to be done orderly, and it's going to be done in a transparent manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Maisie Walsh. I am at 17 West Cliff. Do I have to do that part? The address? Okay. I want to just say I appreciate you all. Thank you for serving. And I hear what you're all saying, and I really appreciate that as well, because I agree with a lot of what you just said with regards to it's not just about the gun shop. You know, there's also the smoke shop there. There's also the liquor store. There's that whole corner is just, I know, a concern for a lot of people. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that I'm not the only one thinking that, and that, you know, that those thoughts are being mirrored here. With that being said, I wanted to ask some logistical questions, really, because this is my first time kind of being involved in this, and I have a young child. I'm going to have another young child, and of course, this is something that I'm concerned about, just, you know, generally making sure that it's a safe town for my kids. And so what I wanted to know is, it sounds like we're definitely moving forward with this, with like the rezoning and figuring it all out and answering all the questions that everyone asked. How does a member, like someone who lives in Somerville, how do we actually contribute? What is the process?
How do you, okay.
Yeah.
The planning board is charged with the responsibility of developing a master plan. That master plan sets the parameters for zoning. The governing body changes the zoning based on the recommendations in the master plan.
Okay.
So the first place we start is examining the master plan to see if we need to change the recommendations for various areas. The master plan could be very specific. We have a number of redevelopment plans. At the same time, we'll take a look at them and see if they are still appropriate. And once that process is done, we will come out with a series of recommendations for changes that might be required. We have two schedules attached to our land use ordinance. One is Schedule A, one is Schedule B. One determines the uses that are permitted in various zones. And we typically do that by business codes. And one of the things that happened, and while I have at times been critical of the way things have been handled in Borough Hall, I think this was one situation where it was handled properly. When the gun store went in, it was a permitted use. So there was nothing that was done wrong, and the use is permitted. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look at all the zones. We've got projects in the pipeline for East Main Street, for Kirby Avenue, or Fairview Avenue, actually. And we're going to take a look at all of that. And during that process, we will have public meetings, and you will be permitted to contribute during those public meetings. It's not going to be done behind closed doors. And the process is, in general, we sit down with the professionals and we lay out what it is we would like to see, and then they come back with language to enable that. We as a town. I mean, we
Just like tonight, any comments you got, anything you guys say, we take into consideration, and we'll be adding that into recommendations, if, I'm gonna pick on Colin just because he's sitting there. If Colin gets up and says, I feel strongly it should not be involved, XYZ should not be in the mixed-use zone, we take that into consideration. There will be that discussion here with the public, with the comment that Colin made, that goes into the minutes, and then whether we choose to use that or not use it becomes the discussion we have. But you'll get to input at any meeting what you believe is appropriate or not appropriate in those different zones that Andy was talking about.
we encourage the public to come out to those meetings and contribute. When a number of times over the years, and I've been on the planning board for 35 years, and there have been a number of times when we've had visioning sessions with the public. When we created a plan for the landfill around the train station, that was all done with public input. We had 100 people in a room designing what it was going to look like. And it basically came out the way we thought it was going to look. There are a few minor changes, but the basics are there. And it wasn't this board doing it. It was the general public. And that's the way we run things.
So my question is to Colin, sort of logistically, where and how will they find out about like workshop meetings and things of that nature?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to sit there, I'm too old, my back hurts. The logistics are, once we hire the professionals to guide us through the process, we will have a series of meetings where we say, this is our objective, here's the reason why. Give us the framework. And then the logistics are on our website, in the newspaper, on social media. We will advertise a public meeting to investigate, let's say, the master plan. Right? The public is invited. And there'll be a facilitator. It may be me, it may be someone else. And you will say, this is what we think. And that all goes into the record. Then we go away again and we look at this stuff and we go through it and distill it. Then we advertise another meeting. And we say, this is what we think we heard, this is what we think we can do, and here's the legalities behind it. And you can comment again. And we'll do that maybe 3 or 4 times until we come up with a final document. So we try and make it public, and it's a lot better than it was 10 or 15 years ago when we only had the Courier News to advertise. Now we've got a web page, and we've got Facebook, and we've got all social media. So everyone should know when the meetings are taking place.
And is the webpage the same webpage where I can find information about like this meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. SomervilleNJ.org.
.gov.org.
That's us.
.org.
And
Yep.
so in order for someone to contribute, they have to actually come here?
Would you step
Well, you
closer to the
can,
mic?
you can contribute in
I think
writing.
you shut the mic off by accident. Try and flip it again. No,
No, the other way.
flip it the other way. I
Well,
died.
That's
Yeah,
it.
there we go.
But no, you can do it in writing. We'll tell you how to do it. When
Okay.
we publish the notice,
Yeah.
you can send emails, you could write a letter, or you can come in person.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was wondering, because I wasn't sure, I know not everyone's able to make it here, like who wants to at all times, of course, but,
Hell, I don't want to be.
fair. But, yeah, I was wondering, so if they can send emails, they can do that, and then it will be like entered into,
Send it
the
into
record?
into the record,
okay,
Yeah,
because he's
All right.
typing
So-
it while we're recording it as well.
right.
so you're gonna wanna send emails to Jenna here, if you wanna get something to us.
Yeah.
And her information's on the website.
No,
Okay.
and we
Yeah.
will tell you how to send emails. We'll
Well, thank
probably
you.
set up a separate mailbox. and
Yeah,
We have also in the past had daytime, like weekend daytime visioning meetings and things. So that hasn't been
Okay.
set up when the RFPs come back and we get the people who are gonna facilitate it. It will be clearer, and then it will be spelled out, hopefully, very clear on the website.
okay. And then the kind of information that we would be expected to kind of bring in and contribute, would that be just, I feel this way, or would it
Yeah,
be
what
like?
you want the community to
Yep.
look like. This is where
Okay.
you get to plan your community.
That's
So we wouldn't be expected to come in and like quote laws
No.
or,
No,
you know,
no,
pass or
that's,
anything
no,
like that?
it's your vision of
Okay,
what
I-
you want
I-
Somerville
yeah.
to look like.
We're
This is
we're
where, how I got
interested in
started.
your opinion.
Yeah,
Okay, all right. I think that's everything.
that's how we all got up here. We came in and we
Yeah.
complained
And
and.
you cared.
Said what our vision was about, so be careful.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Megan Andrews, 12 Walnut Street. I've lived here for 18 years. On May 29th, the Somerset County Board of Commissioners committed to doing all they can to keep the community safe from gun violence. They publicly declared June as Gun Violence Prevention Awareness Month. Somerville Borough
Hang on, your mic just went out. You might want to sit at the table.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to have them sit.
So Somerset County Board of Commissioners did this after residents requested it. The same request was made of Somerville Borough Council, and to my knowledge, they never got a response, which was pretty disheartening. I'm very thankful that I'm finally hearing people in power discussing this. It is a little disheartening, though, to hear at the start, well, we only have this one bit of information, we don't really have the information, when I feel that there have been a team of residents who have been sending all of the information to the borough, the planning board, and the zoning board with little or no response. So it is a little disheartening. You've spoken of the permitted use. And the way it's been referred to at previous meetings is, well, it's like any other store. It's like any other store, it's permitted use, that's it. However, our town didn't even have a zoning category for this store at the time. And frankly, several of us feel that the former zoning officer made a pretty arbitrary decision to categorize it. It kind of went to 3 places before it fell into sporting goods.
It fell into one of the business categories that covers a lot of other kinds
Right, it
of
went to
retail.
miscellaneous, but it was like kind of a interesting roadmap to
Yeah,
get there.
He made the correct decision.
In your opinion, not in the opinion of a lot of residents.
In the opinion of our attorney and our planner, he made the right decision.
Okay. Given there hasn't been a firearms store in the town in literal decades, it's hard to listen to our officials continuously say, it's just like any other store, it's just like any other store. And then also know that when there was going to be an adult bookstore, there was all these meetings about it, decisions, and they were told, nope, they can't be here, they have to be there. The dispensary, everybody went out of their way to find a new place, it's not going to be in town. So I do understand there's a process and that this is part of that process. But also I wish I felt that the boards, the members, some of the members that we speak to, were really hearing what we were saying, because I heard earlier, you can't ban it, you can't ban it. I don't know anybody who came here saying it should be banned. It was about that specific location in town.
And that's
So
what
that,
we're going to look for.
Right.
We're going to take a look at that, but not just for gun stores. And, it falls into a specific category of business use. And what are we using now? Used to be,
We're using the North American classification.
Or if you look at Schedule A, there's a note on there because the SIC, most of them are 95% are SIC codes, Standard Industrial Classification. They stopped using that in 1987, so what took over is the North American Industrial, NAICS. So we look up those codes and drill down and cross-reference that to the SIC codes to come up with the descriptions that the chairman's talking about.
right.
And I have seen the paperwork on that the zoning office,
Yeah, it wasn't, it was not an arbitrary decision.
I disagree, and I know others disagree. I also just wanted to point out, while I'm hearing people say it's not about an opinion, it has felt that those who are supportive of that store there feel that their opinion is more important than others. And I have heard some pretty shocking statements and the way some of these meetings, and not necessarily specifically the planning board meeting, but a little bit in each, that it's been hard to come up here and feel like we're being heard. And it feels like the town is afraid of this owner, and therefore, and so worried to do the wrong thing in checking that everything was okay with this store. And that's how a lot of this started, was some of us were like, wait, are all the T's crossed, are all the I's dotted? And then it didn't appear they were, and we haven't really been able to get answers in a timely fashion. And in fact, that property has been violating terms of its approval in regards to the parking lot signage and traffic flow. And the town, again, appears to be so afraid to upset this owner that they won't take any action against these violations. They've been made aware of them for 6 months, and it's just felt like no matter what path we take, we get thrown in a different direction. I'm not asking for an answer. It was important to me that everybody heard this, because this has been my experience. I'm still waiting on Oprah's that, regarding this traffic situation. And it is a really dangerous intersection. There's been 5 accidents there in the last 5 years. There's no sight line when you're coming out of it. So changing the use of the store to any kind of big merchandise store as opposed to what it was, I brought up, my initial thing, the initial thing I was upset about was the traffic issues and the potential hazards in a store that was going to bring more customers than the glass store. And again, it's been ignored for 2 years. So again, I really am appreciative that we're finally hearing this topic is going to get discussed, that we're going to have input. I thank you for listening to me. And it's never been my goal to be a thorn in anyone's side. I just really feel like things were not handled well, and that I feel several of us have been disrespected over and over again when all we're trying to do is be involved and voice our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you sit down? That mic's not working.
Hi, I'm Emily Quasier. I live at 200 West Cliff Street. I really appreciate the dialogue I heard here today. I really appreciate moving past arguments about a specific business, which seems irrelevant at this point, and thinking more holistically about that area of town and how it can be developed. I would like to suggest that a common denominator that could be used to look at businesses in that area would be age restriction. If a business makes, their primary business is selling age-restricted goods or services, that's not the best place for it. Already, probably almost 50% of businesses in the two, strip malls or whatever at that intersection it's a liquor store, we've got the gun store, we've got the vape store. I mean, I go past that intersection, I have 3 kids, I go past that intersection literally a minimum of like 6 times a day. I'd love to just go buy a soda someplace where I could walk in with a 9-year-old. Perhaps that could be a way to think about businesses in that area, in that residential mixed
Well,
area.
that's what we're going to do.
I would just, if you're opening the floor to opinions. And I would also just like to put forward a concern that, I'm really glad that this process is all happening. I understand to do this job well, to rezone properly takes time. And another lingering concern I have is that another vape shop could open, as Lisa mentioned. I really appreciated this comment. That area has a lot of room for more redevelopment right now. There are vacant businesses. I have a concern that a new vape shop could open at any moment, right? Because it would be cool, maybe it's impossible, but if there's something you could do to sort of pause or be more mindful of granting licenses to new businesses going into that area while we're considering this rezoning. I mean, I think it's become apparent that this part of town is something that needs to be looked at. And if it takes a year to come up with a good new master plan, and it could easily, I think, a lot can change in a year, and a lot of new business could open in a year. And I would just like your consideration that this is an important matter to a lot of people in town. A lot of kids and a lot of families are there literally a lot more hours a day than I'd like to be sitting at that intersection. And I don't know what you can do. You're the experts, of course, but maybe you could consider that while this process is unfolding.
Hurry the process along as much as we can.
Not to the expense of quality, but to just in consideration of new businesses, particularly if another age-restricted business, or not age-restricted, but you know what I mean. If they're selling bongs or whatever, I don't know.
So Bernie, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah.
I do want to just point out that, so this board, we don't give licenses or say like this business can open, this business can't, using the vape shop, the gun store, the liquor store there. None of them come here and say like, hey, can we open up this kind of store? So we don't see any of that. So like the gun shop never came in front of us. None of them come in front of us. We look at if they need variances from, and deviations from what's acceptable. So we're not going to be able to stop and say, no stores can open up, in the next 6 months while we review something. That's, we don't issue, to Megan's point, sorry, back there, not over here. We don't issue the violations. If you complain to us, we're just citizens as well, volunteering. We don't issue violations or any of that. We strictly look at the planning of it and the zoning. So we're putting the notes down and we'll take that, but we can't, I don't want you leaving here thinking that we're gonna be able to just tomorrow say, oh, we're not gonna allow a vape shop
No,
in there.
and that's understood, and I do, I think a real take-home lesson, and again, the gun shop is a great example. The gun shop drives home the point of like how little authority the borough has and oversight the borough has once something's already opened. You don't really have a lot of control over choosing and picking and choosing a business. I appreciate that. Like, I work in a regulatory industry also. It's tricky. Therefore, zoning is so important, right? Like, it really just underscores, you're not just zoning for today, you're zoning for 10 years from now. And Somerville, the way Somerville is growing, like, that intersection, I don't know, the decisions you make in the next year or whatever. are
I
gonna
think you'll
impact
be
people long
surprised that the process won't take as long as you think it will. It's not, we've been through this quite a few times. Yes, it is, I want to say it's time consuming. Are we talking 2 years? Are we talking a full year? No. The timing is a lot shorter than what you think. Is it going to be tomorrow? No. Is it going to be next month? No. But you will see this process move pretty quickly. I think I can speak for this board. It is just as important for us that we want to get through this for the community as much as the community wants it to gone through. So I think we're all on the same page. It's just a matter of now taking what we are allowed to do. We've started that process. We started that a few months ago. We've started the process. Once we have who answers and who we end up hiring, then we take that next step. But we've all been, this isn't like discussions, I'm thinking of it on a personal level, even before somebody's here. We're not saying, we're not doing anything. We're just sitting back holding our, folding our hands saying we're waiting. We are having some of these discussions, hence tonight even the discussion. So I think you will be surprised in the long run. It's not as long-term as you feel off. Because to Jason's point, we do want to make sure that we're going to do this in a timely manner under the restrictions we have where we can't say, okay, for moving, right now, everything stops. Nobody can put a license in or put a permit in for anything because we don't have the authority to do that. So we do understand and we do respect that as well.
Cool, I appreciate it. Thank you for all that you all do.
Thank you. I just want to say that a few years ago, Lisa was on the other side of this table.
I was.
That was painful.
Yeah.
More than a few years ago, but we won't say how long ago.
Hello, I'm Celine Graves on Spring Street. And do you need the address specifically?
Yes.
97 East Spring Street. Thank you for doing this today. And I very much appreciate that there's a lot of discussion about bringing the specific nature and character of our town and what we all bring and what we feel and what we would like that to be to the discussion. It's appreciated because we have a very special dynamic to how we have a walkable town. We have children coming through, it's other than our special education, our special needs children, they're not bused. We have a lot of families and everybody's out and about, and so I appreciate that that's something that is being considered here and that we're having a hopeful chance to say something about that. One thing I wanted to bring up specifically was to ask, it sounds, Mr. Novato, that you were the person who added the link to the agenda to
Yes.
that Second Amendment site, and that was, and who approves the final agenda? Are you the person who
I am.
approves that? And were there other, was this something that you did independently, or was this a
Well,
decision that was made?
Jenna helps a lot, but as planning board chair, it's my job to set the agenda.
Right. One thing I wanted to point out is I found it deeply disturbing that in the vast array of things that you could have included in the agenda, you did not include something from a New Jersey state licensing process, whatever, about firearms. You chose specifically a Second Amendment advocacy, fighting against people taking away our rights website. And so it concerns me that either there is an agenda there that is being presented from your end, or perhaps a lack of,
What I did, I just want to explain. I got that information from somebody else. And what I did was I wanted to explain the process, not advocate for anything, but so that
well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because intention aside, what you chose to share was not state information on gun licensing. It was not something about, this was a Second Amendment advocacy site. So either this is an agenda that is being presented by you or through you from someone else, or there was a lack of attention to truly analyzing what was being shared. And that's my feedback. You don't have to agree with me, but that's...
Okay. The purpose of, again, and I'm repeating myself, but the purpose was to explain the process that one has to go through to buy guns in New Jersey.
There are New Jersey state websites that explain that are not pro-gun websites. So
Well,
what
there was nothing in what I distributed that was pro-gun.
the website itself specifically that you chose to link to is not a neutral state organization. It is a pro-Second Amendment advocacy. I didn't think I was going to have to spend this time on this. But, I'm sorry, did you have something that you wanted to add, or would you like to wait your turn?
I might wait my turn and tell you how wrong you were.
You're very welcome to. I would really like to. Like I said, I don't expect an argument about this, but I just wanted to give a feedback that the choice that was being presented was not neutral state information. It was a partisan website, and that might have been a mistake. It might have been an overlook on your part, but it does present in the totality of what's occurring here. One of the other things that I'm sorry, I didn't think that this was going to be and I just want to say that, I'm sorry, I neglected to write on who said it. I think you said as well. You said that the store was not zoned arbitrarily. And this is not specifically about the gun store. What I do want to highlight, to point out, that there is a process that occurs, and one thing that could be changed, and I know this may not necessarily be under the zoning board's purview, but you're talking a lot about transparency, and one of the things is that when stores like the vape shop, which just sort of sprung up out of nowhere for a lot of our families during the pandemic, and the gun store, when stores like that are approved, Somerville makes a choice to not inform the zoning board when it is a simple approval, and that is not a choice that is required to happen in that way. That is a voluntary choice that the zoning officer, and the way things are set up at the moment, they can choose to not give that information to the zoning board. If that information were given to the zoning board, that a simple approval was made of that type of retail establishment, it would give more of the public a chance to have some sort of interaction, and I think would have avoided, perhaps some of the concerns with transparency, because I think that Deirdre's point about looking at the holistic nature of that area, in particular close to the school, is a really big deal. And I just wanted to put one more point, which is that it is true that a gun-free zone around a school does not, apply to specifically to retail or to citizens who have their own firearms. However, local local towns such as Piscataway have decided to zone around their schools to exclude certain things that include the sale of firearms. And so while spot zoning is not appropriate, while talking about a gun-free school zone does not apply to keeping certain types of businesses away from the schools, there are legal, correct mechanisms that other towns that are close to here.
Nobody
have
said there
done.
wasn't.
Right, no, I'm saying.
So I just want to put that on
no,
the record. You're going in a direction where we've already stated that we are full open to what you're saying, but there is a proper way to do it.
Right, I'm just emphasizing in the same way that it's being emphasized that there's ways to do things. I'm emphasizing that that is something that can be done, and that a lot of families would like that to be very much considered. Thank you.
One thing I do want to mention, just for the chairman in his sharing, trying to share some information, is I did kind of what your mindset was. I read this, and then I went to the state website and I read that. And to be honest, layman, I didn't see any discrepancies that would have made me sway either way. I thought both were accurate representations, and I thought what this was, this how to buy a gun in New Jersey, accurately represented it. And I would encourage, and like I did myself, go out and search it. Don't take what's given to you, right? No one said. So I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, but I don't see how that necessarily. The point is that you're right. The information was analogous. Could have been found at an analogous website that would not have been a partisan.
All right, but I don't think there was any
partisan site.
agenda here.
So it sounds like you're disagreeing with me.
On that point, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a 13-year Somerville. Oh, sure.
Name and address.
Caroline Flemos, 37 West Spring Street. As a 13-year Somerville resident, I have found the events of the last 5 months disheartening and eye-opening. In November of last year, I went back to work full-time for the first time since my son came home. Up until this point, I would tell anybody who would listen how wonderful Somerville is and how family-friendly it is. In fact, my husband and I nearly put in an offer on a home in Bridgewater, and we chose Somerville because the schools were better and we liked the community better. Part of the thing I always appreciated about this town was its commitment to its children and families, and I'm disheartened to see the inaction of the last 5 months. Right now, as far as I understand it, the person who is the zoning officer, I do understand now it's a mixed position, but it has like a new name, but they're ultimately going to be doing the same job, can approve a business based on their interpretation that it fits into the zoning of a neighborhood. Currently, once they do so, there's no publication of that approval. And so there's no way for the public to know that that happened. So like if a tree falls in the woods, right, and no one hears it, did it really fall, right? That classic loop of a question. So the reality is at the moment, our zoning board was totally in the dark when this decision was made, right? They were in the dark. Public was in the dark. So there is no way to appeal a decision in a timely fashion that wasn't published. Because by the time the business is putting up signage and opening, it's too late to appeal it. And so actually, I think we have a bigger problem here. And it's our process for how these things are going with the zoning officer. Because just like another resident who got up before, I was shocked to see the signs go up for the vape shop. I don't live that far from there. I was like, what is this doing across from the elementary school? This is a weird placement. And it's sort of become a bunch of these little shops kind of clustering into this neighborhood that are probably less desirable for a walking town with one elementary school. Because at the end of the day, we're not Bridgewater. We only have one elementary school. So there's not like anywhere else for us to send our kids if we want them to go to the public school, right? And so at the end of the day, it was a little disheartening to see that right now there is no publication. And actually, I think we might be opening ourselves up legally in that sense because it was never published. And therefore, that could open people up to like endless appeals, really. But in any event, the current issue that we're discussing tonight is that we have a gun shop within 1,000 feet of our only elementary school, a public elementary school, I should say. And sadly, 1 in 5 of our elementary schools in this country has a gun shop within a half a mile of it. This is concerning due to the crime that gun shops attract. There are roughly 5 incidents per day where firearms go missing through robbery, burglary, larceny, or other loss. Too often these guns are diverted to the illegal market. Nearly 40% of crime-based guns recovered in the states with the most guns per capita were bought at a gun shop less than 10 miles from the crime. Measuring crime through neighborhood levels of homicides and robberies, local homicide and robbery rates increase alongside the number of gun shops in a neighborhood, even after accounting for other factors associated with other homicide rates. Here's a nice local statistic. In 2023, a gun store in Morris County, FSS Armory, was burglarized. 20 firearms were stolen. Most of the guns have yet to be recovered, and those that have been found were recovered in crime scenes or in the hands of criminals, including persons trafficking guns on the black market in New Jersey and neighboring states, according to our Attorney General. As a member of our community, I have more concerns about the safety risk of having a gun store in such close proximity to our youngest children and what that brings to the neighborhood, especially a residential neighborhood like the one in question. I asked the planning board to consider the following. Number 1, the zoning board minutes should include approvals of businesses alleged to be within the current zoning of an area. This would allow our zoning board the opportunity to, first of all, become aware of approvals before the public in a timely fashion. And second of all, it would save our town's clerks the extra administrative tasks of being Oprah'd every single week for every business that has been approved. That would definitely cut down on the paperwork. The scope of miscellaneous retail should be looked at, okay? I think it's a little bit, it's a logical fallacy to say that this is the same as any other miscellaneous retail store. This isn't an ice cream shop, you know, it's not the glass store that was there. This is a store that has to cover its windows because people can't see what it's selling from the inside. If there are state laws like that, then we need to really be thinking about who's walking around on a frequent basis outside of that establishment and what could happen potentially as a result of that. I also call for a review of other businesses in the area, along with how businesses are classified. I call for a review of zoning regulations pertaining to business signage in areas that abut residential properties. Based on things that were Oprah'd, it appears that in that area, businesses were told in the past, including the glass shop, that they couldn't frost their windows because the windows are intended for display purposes only. And while I understand that variances can be obtained, a variance was actually never obtained in this specific case. And therefore, there was no opportunity for public comment. And not to say that it wouldn't have been approved. It's totally possible you guys, or the zoning board, may have approved that. But the reality is the variance never happened. And so now we have a situation where they're potentially out of compliance with that, and they're also out of compliance with having bullets on their sign, but that's for another day. I do encourage you guys, I think it's great to hear that you're looking at all zoning in these areas. It is a mixed commercial residential area. There are residential homes literally next door to this building, let alone the schools, the daycare that takes children from 5 weeks old. All of the things that we have in that area that are very family friendly, including parks and other things that it's a very nice section of town, typically for people to live in. And I just want to, again, to remind everyone that we only have one of each public school. And so while I understand that the considerations might be different in a Bridgewater or even a Piscataway where they made those decisions, they have more than one public elementary school in their town, right? They have more than one public middle school, more than one public high school. Anybody who relies on public school for their children, especially since we are too small to offer busing, right? Those neighborhoods in and around the schools should really be considered, because the reality is that there isn't busing, right? So the children may very well have to walk there. And one last thing before I leave. The YMCA children who do the walking school bus now have to walk down Spring Street. So they're going out Schoolhouse Road area, and they're going down Spring Street. And there are like no traffic lights. There are no, it's like, I actually live on, as I mentioned, West Spring. It's very dangerous walking around those intersections, right? And so once again, I just think if there had been a variance meeting or anything else, and I know we can't get in a time machine, I get it. But if there had been, some of these concerns could have been brought forward by the public. And the reality is that it can be scary for the town to face up to big business owners, but it can be scarier if we lose a child at the end of the day because they had to cross a really busy road in a group, right? And so children's lives are precious. There's no number we can put on them. And that's my final comment for this evening.
Thank you. Anybody else? Rich?
Rich O'Neill, 124 West Cliff Street, Somerville. Also a member of the zoning board for more than a few years. What you put out on that agenda was verbatim from the state. It was the rules and regulations. So anybody that say it was prejudicial is absolutely wrong. It's the state regulations, plain and simple. I think Mr. Addicks handled that quite well, so I need to go no further with it. The next thing, everybody keeps talking about the zoning board. The zoning board only hears applications for variances. We are not a public information body. We don't know about a lot of stuff. And quite frankly, you don't want everything going to the zoning board. You'll stop this town dead in its feet, because to get on the agenda and to accomplish something takes a lot of money and a lot of time. So what they're talking about is what they don't know about. So perhaps when you have these meetings, you should explain the function of your board and the Board of Adjustment, so people understand what the rules are. We don't have the right to just go do something hunky-dory. We all have regulations, and everything is a process. So I think we got a lot of people who are talking about stuff they know nothing about. And I think when you have these meetings, probably the first night in, you should explain the process of each board so everybody understands what the rules are.
Thank you.
Bill Cisco, 37 Eastern Avenue, the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. Our focus and mission is to end the hostile, anti-Second Amendment and self-defense sentiment within the New Jersey legislature and community. You are correct. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So, real quick, just because I don't want to harp on this anymore, if you click that link, this is what it brings you to. That is not on this link. You would have to deviate from the page.
I read from I scrolled down on the website, and that's where I read it.
I'm saying the actual link that he put takes you directly to the state uniform code.
I just clicked on it right here. It went to the National Second Amendment Society. It was not from the state of New Jersey. No, I can show you right now.
Wait, all right, enough.
Well, my point is, anyway, I made my point.
Enough.
Can I think we need to be careful here. I really do respect and I appreciate every comment coming in here. As to Bernie's point, I was on your side when I say, in the sense, on a controversial subject. But to everybody's point, understanding what our purview is here. We have no control and no decisions over what our zoning officer does. That is for a town council and for our administrator to take care of. We have no purview over those. We have no purview over the zoning board. So understanding, I appreciate your comments. We can do nothing about them, okay? Not this board. We can do nothing about it. Just so that everybody understands. I don't want you to feel like we're not hearing or listening to you, but we can do nothing about what our zoning officer does or what, that is not our purview.
My name is Bick Truitt. I live at 18 West Spring Street. I've been here for 16 years. My kids walked past the gun shop to get to school every day and back prior to the gun shop arriving and being set up. I agree. I have a couple points, but the first point I want to make is that I think we're all missing the point here about the link. It's about perception. If you want to have people come in and work with you, right, don't take a website that's going to annoy the people who are opposed to having a gun shop put in here. Okay? That's simple. Use the state website.
I don't think it makes any difference because the information
It makes
is
a
the
lot
same.
of difference, because when people look at that, they're looking at a Second Amendment rights site. And that has nothing to do with the issue
I'm
at
not
all.
saying
You're
it
making
does.
it part of the issue. by doing it.
Excuse me. Do not raise your voice.
I won't. Can I continue?
You have anything else?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was a little disheartened at the beginning of this conference, of this meeting, that there was no information on how to keep a gun shop out of Somerville. You didn't get anything on it. So I Googled it while I was sitting back here. And lo and behold, there's a whole article about Piscataway and the uniform plan that they're doing with their planning board, their, I'm not sure what form of
Governing
township
body.
it is, but basically their whole municipal government complex is working on identifying ways to keep gun shops out of Piscataway. And so far, they've been successful. And I would really like to see the same kind of thing happen here. All right? That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Christina Edelman, 42 Coddington Place. I am excited to see how we can re-envision that intersection. I am excited to attend more meetings and be involved in all of that planning. I understand your function for creating a vision for Somerville and taking into account the perspectives and visions of all of its residents as we move forward. And I wanted to thank you for that. And the thing that disheartens me is that to get so many of us involved, we had to see something come up that did not align with our vision of Somerville. And you know, that's a really unfortunate way for a fortunate thing to happen, to get a lot of passionate people involved. And we're here and we're excited to work with you, and I would agree with a lot of things that have been said in regards to age-restricted businesses having proximity to schools in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close the public session. And like I said, I don't have any comments. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.